After doing my episodes of turning Doors entities into SCPs, I started getting a lot more requests from people to do something with another Roblox horror game, Rainbow Friends. But I didn't know what route I wanted to take to make them more monstrous, because I have lots of different series of doing that on this channel. Could have made them into fantasy beasts, or kaiju, or venomize them, or make them demons. And eventually I just kind of decided not to decide. I'm gonna turn different Rainbow Friends into different types of monsters today. Let's see how that goes. Let's go!
Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. Despite the fact that kaiju aren't randomly popping up in my world anymore, and the fact that me and the other Slayers have managed to take a bunch of them out, there are still some people that, for whatever their insane reasons, seem pretty determined to keep the giant monstrosities around longer. Some people have even stooped to making their own kaiju, though don't ask me how that's possible. I'm more into smashing monsters and less into learning about their biology. There's this one mad scientist guy who just goes by the codename Red, who's managed to use parts of slain kaiju to create his own. We don't know why, but as far as we do know, he's managed to make 4 out of his base in an old abandoned amusement park that was destroyed in the first year of kaiju attacks. Now his monsters have smashed up every city in the surrounding areas, and Red keeps threatening to make more if he isn't given stacks and stacks of cash and supplies and whatever else. It doesn't really matter, cause we ain't gonna negotiate. We're gonna thump his big beasties. Weirdly enough though, one of the ones that's been giving us the hardest time is actually blind. We call it Green Gore, and it's this flappy-jawed beast with long tentacle arms that it uses to find its way around the city it smashed up. We've sent in some kaiju-crushing mechs a couple of times, thinking we could easily get the drop on the thing, just staying at a distance and using projectiles. Problem is, we're pretty sure now it can sense vibrations in the ground by feeling the streets and buildings around it, so it can usually start coming at us before we've taken a shot. Some of the other Slayers have considered the possibility that this thing ain't actually blind, since the way we learned about its lack of sight was by the sadistic red guy hacking our comms, as he's done a few times, to tell us about his monsters. He seems like he's messing with us a lot of the time, like he's enjoying us trying to take out his kaiju. Still, Green Gore does pass for blind to me, and it ain't really hindering him either. When the thing gets its slimy mitts on any of our mechs, it usually goes straight for a bite, and this thing's got a pretty mighty chomp. It's not going to be impossible to take out, but Green Gore's definitely given us more trouble than we anticipated. Now, one thing you might have noticed if you're a fan of Rainbow Friends and have played the game is that I have not yet given Green here a tongue. And that's because when I first did this drawing, I hadn't looked at reference images of him actually doing the jump scare, or I guess not jump scare, but when he kills someone and pulls them in. So I hadn't noticed the fact that he had a tongue. But when I was doing my final research for the episode after I had done this drawing, I was like, ooh, yes, okay, I really need to add that in. So I added it in last minute, but it was kind of a happy little accident because I had actually considered adding saliva or something to the creature's mouth to fill out the space a little bit more because its mouth is so wide open. It felt a little bit empty in there, so when I add the tongue, I also add a little bit of saliva, as I often do with monsters. And I think that ends up just being a nice final little touch to the piece and making it a really fun kaiju drawing. Also, I've kind of figured out a formula for my smashed up buildings in the background of kaiju drawings now, which I sort of figured out back when I did my Xenomorph Godzilla drawing that I think I like and might be making me tempted to do more kaiju episodes. But anyway, for now, here's Green. My ally Heath was recently telling me about a set of monsters from his universe that he was struggling to defeat. Oddly enough, they heavily resembled the set of creatures from my own universe. There is a mountain pass in my world known to be very treacherous to voyage through due to a set of vicious beasts that have resided there for decades, if not centuries. Rumors even state that these creatures were once extinct species, resurrected and given extended lifespans by a man who is generally referred to as the Crimson Sorcerer, which is another unusual link to the tale Heath told from his world. One of the beasts to be found there is the Orange Cavern Crawler, though I've always thought the term crawler to be somewhat of a misnomer, as it doesn't imply how fast the creature can be. The mountain pass has different sections of varying foliage and terrain, but as you may have assumed from the name, the cavern crawler resides in a system of caves, and is near constantly running through them on the hunt for more food. Those who have seen the creature and lived have claimed that it is near constantly ravenously hungry, and the moment it gets the scent of a potential meal, it will sprint wildly towards its prey. It has been seen occasionally to leave its cavern to seek meals, but this is a very rare occurrence. One explorer has even claimed, though, that this creature, in a time when it became hungry enough, left its cave and attempted to eat one of the other beasts known to make this mountain pass so treacherous. Nothing ended up coming of this battle, however, other than a few scratches on each of the beasts. The creatures of this region have always intrigued me, and many others of my world, as nearby villages have actually made it a rite of passage for their guards in training to make it through this territory alive, proving their might. Of course now, upon learning of other versions of these creatures in other worlds, I am all the more intrigued, as Heath was not the only ally of mine to have tales of beings resembling these in their worlds. Now this one was quite fun to draw. It was actually the first drawing I did for this episode, and I did it coming immediately off the back of doing the Ben 10 Dragons episode, the previous episode on this channel. So I was already in the mindset of doing fantasy beast dragon kind of designs, and for Orange I kinda knew I just wanted to do a more fleshed out version of it in my style, fitting it into Tehran's world. And I guess this could even kind of technically fit in the category of dragon, if you just consider it a drake. And I didn't really consider making it a full-on dragon with wings, because I thought then it would just look a little bit too much like a generic dragon and not enough resemble Orange, because Orange doesn't really have a ton of specific visual traits to pull from. It's kind of just a lizard with bug eyes. And speaking of the bugged out eyes, that part I think is maybe the one weak point of this. I did originally start looking at reference images of chameleons to try and make it a little bit more realistic, and then I didn't really end up going that route. I just kinda did have eyes popping right out of its head in a weird sort of way. And I think if I wanted to push it into realism a little bit more, I should have leaned into that chameleon idea, but overall I'm not really bummed about it. That's kind of a little nitpick, and overall I am quite pleased with how this one came together. Hope you all like it as well. Let's take a look. In my world, amidst the various demons that lurk in shadows and hunt for meals consisting of poor, fear-drenched prey, there is a being known as Vermilioth. This is a lesser demon general with a largely red hide, who himself has created a set of 4, or possibly more, demons to seek prey for his consumption. This being and his demons reside in hiding in a place called Hemlock Woods. This forest was once a frequent place for traveling circuses to set up shows, but has since been cut from all tours due to the frequent disappearances that occurred there. Still though, this hasn't stopped unsuspecting campers and hikers from traversing through these woods and putting themselves at the risk of becoming a meal for one of Vermilioth's demons. One of these creatures is known as Purpleplex. It is a largely purple demon that will often be seen by its prey in the coming days before they venture into the woods, though only in fleeting glimpses, catching a set of hands or leering eyes peering from a storm drain or a dark corner as they go about their normal lives. Some in the Predator Coalition of Demon Hunters have suggested that this creature is sent to telepathically implant in the minds of potential prey the idea to venture into Hemlock Woods. This could explain why some still choose to go, despite knowing how many have gone missing in the thick of those trees. When prey have ventured into the woods, they will then see the eyes of this demon appearing in all manner of concealed places. Holes in trees, peering through the leaves above, or lurking in the caves. Though, as in Tehran's tale, another demon lurks in that area, waiting impatiently as well. To some, these eyes and hands slinking forth from a crevice are enough to drive them far, far away, but some have been allured by them and made the mistake of drawing nearer. If they do get too close for too long, the demon's stretchy, amorphous arms will lunge forth and grab the victim, and no matter how small the opening, will manage to pull the being through into a dark void. In this place, all the victim will see are leering eyes and hands springing forth from the dark.
There is nowhere for the victim to run, though they will likely try, scrambling through the empty void with hands springing towards them, tripping them, clawing at their flesh and slowly chipping away at their will to live. To give them some hope, the beast will give fleeting glimpses of the woods outside the void, giving the prey a target to run towards, only to close the path to freedom just before they can reach it. When their fear has built to a sufficient degree, Purpleplex will send its true arms forth to grab the prey by their ankles and slowly pull them towards its maw to devour them, and in turn send strength to its demon leader, Vermilioth. Now, in terms of the narration for this episode, I did consider having it be a banter episode where a bunch of my narrators are talking to each other and having a conversation, but those generally dip more into comedic territory, and with a monster episode, I didn't want to go that far into a more upbeat, jovial tone, hence doing it one by one like this. And in terms of this design, for its arms, I actually took some inspiration from one of the other drawings that I'm doing, that'll be the last one to show up in this, and given this thing kinda goopy, slimy, almost venomized sort of looking arms. Because I already had our green Kaiju design, which had long gangly arms as well, and I went the tentacle route with that, and I probably could have done that with this, but I think the slimy sort of vibe works pretty well, and goes decently well with demons as well, because it fits into that category of kind of being a creature whose biology wouldn't really work, and being a little bit more creepy and mysterious. And that kind of leads me to something I'm pretty happy with in this episode, which is that even though these are all my own monster designs of the creatures from Rainbow Friends, and there's obviously some similarities between them all design-wise, and obviously more so style-wise, I feel like I did do a decent job of making these the distinct type of monster that I was turning them into. Like, the Kaiju one does really look like a Kaiju, the Fantasy Beast one kinda looks like it could be a dinosaur, and I did actually consider writing it as a dinosaur, but again, that would have gone a bit too far into comedic because of the narrator of my dinosaur episodes. And then this demon one, I feel like it does fit pretty well into my demon series, though I guess a little bit more colorful than my demons usually are. After hearing Tayrin and Mara tell us about versions of these monsters from their worlds, we finally got some answers from our buddy Astra about why there are so many creatures and people that seem to have weird doppelgangers in other universes. She's been around the multiverse more than most of us and told us that there's a place that may not even physically exist called the Akashic Records that everyone in the multiverse is technically linked to, though not many of us know it. She said it's like a collective subconscious that basically has a record of every monster, person, thing, or even idea to ever exist. Without knowing it, some overseers or people making things like mech armors or robots or dinosaurs or even writing stuff for movies or comics might be connecting to the Akashic Records and, as a result, making a version of something that already exists somewhere else. Doesn't explain how some people or monsters might evolve naturally to be similar to things from other universes, but Astra said that was all she really knew about him. The Akashic Records sort of border on being a myth, but most overseers apparently generally accept them as a real thing. Anyway, funny enough, even Astra had come across a version of these monsters that we were talking about. This time she was looking for samples of this type of creature she used to like messing around with, called a symbiote. There's this one universe, M616, where, surprise surprise, a supervillain named Dr. Red was experimenting on people to turn them into superpowered mindless minions, both to steal stuff for him and to keep superheroes off his back. He managed to make some decent mind-controlled super soldiers, but he was worried they weren't powerful enough to stop the kinds of heroes that might come after him. To try and up their power even more, he got himself samples of the same sort of thing Astra was after, the symbiotes, and started by putting one of them on his first successful minion, this big lumbering blue guy who was so brain dead by the experiments done on him that he couldn't even keep his mouth shut.
The symbiote is a sort of alien parasite that bonds with someone and makes them stronger and faster and more vicious. The actual results can depend on the host and the specific symbiote, but that gooey thing paired with this mutated minion was apparently a pretty killer combination. One problem this blue guy had, as far as Doc Red was concerned, was that he was too slow originally. He had superhuman strength and was something like 9 feet tall, but couldn't even keep up with your average person running. The symbiote helped fix that. Not only did he get way faster and gain the power to climb walls, but if some meddling hero did come in to stop the Doc and was still faster than the blue guy, he could send out these gooey tendrils to wrap him up and catch him. Astra said this hero, who went by the name Spider-Man, still managed to thump Dr. Red and his minions eventually, but then her mention in this spider guy and these symbiotes just got us talking about way more similarities in our universes. Apparently they resembled some dragons in Tehran's world, and the chat got pretty chaotic from there. Pretty sure our group needs to have a sit down and figure out what all we actually know about each other's worlds and the similarities between them. Now, obviously, the lore for that one dipped a little bit more into Multiverse Tales stuff, so it might be a little bit confusing to anyone that's new to the channel, but it actually is kinda leading us into the next Multiverse Tales Community Redraw episode, which is going to be like a Multiverse Tales Explained episode that's going to be both for the audience to get caught up and learn all the lore in a shorter span of time from Multiverse Tales, all the most important stuff, but also it's going to be presented as the characters from Multiverse Tales all sitting down as a group and being like, okay, what all do we know? Everybody make sure everyone knows each other and that sort of thing. But anyway, that's all information more for Multiverse Tales fans. In terms of this drawing, I'm very pleased with it, and this episode was actually originally going to be Rainbow Friends Venomized, because after I did my My Hero Academia Venomized Revisited episode last week, where I went back through those older Venomized episodes and talked about what I like in Venomized drawings and what I would do going forward with future ones. And I was really tempted to just do this whole thing Venomized, and I do still plan to do a Venomized episode of something in the near future, but eventually I was kind of like, yeah, I do still want to do a bunch of different types of monster drawings, though I am super glad I worked in this Venomized one. I said in that My Hero Academia Venomized Revisited episode that I think the coolest thing in Venomized drawings is when a person or character is trying to pull the symbiote off them, and I'm very glad I worked that into this. I think this is a cool example of it, and despite him being all blue, I think I did a decent job having the goop being pulled off his face, standing out from the shoulder and chest behind them. But I will say that the arm in the back, the one that's part of the hand pulling the goop off, if you look at it, it's a little bit too long, a little bit janky looking. As I said in the Revisited episode, there is a little bit of leeway with Venomized stuff, especially if a character is still mid-transformation, because their limbs do change size and things can be a little bit jankier looking, but that is still something that I think I would fix if I were doing this drawing again, is work out the proportions a little bit better before getting into rendering. Still, love dipping back into Venomized stuff, and I hope you all like the result.
Let me know which of these was your favorite in the comments, because I would consider doing a full Rainbow Friends Kaiju or Rainbow Friends Demons or whatever episode if there was one of these that people significantly liked most. Also, if you're new to the channel, you might enjoy my Doors Entities as SCPs episodes, or if there was a specific type of monster you liked best, you might want to check out the series that fits into on this channel. I've got a whole series of turning things into demons and venomizing things and fantasy beasts and dragons and lots of different types of monsters. Plus, if you want access to high-resolution art and inks a day before a video comes out, and access to a bonus weekly podcast series where I talk about my writing and art process and give advice on both, you might want to consider supporting the PopCross Studios Patreon. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note, and the thought I want to leave people with today is a quote from a man named Robin Sharma, who says that the discomfort of growth is always more valuable than the illusion of safety. Learning to be comfortable outside your comfort zone is going to be incredibly valuable to you in all aspects of life. I hope that's inspiring. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday. Goodbye.